Miami. Miami, 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 Miami. It feels like Miami.
Welcome to the EP Podcast. I'm your host, Giancarlo Navas, and with me today, maiden voyage on the program. Super excited. We're going to be really guest heavy this postseason. Welcome in Rohan Katti. Rohan, I should have asked you how to pronounce your name up top. We were talking about the series. He does stuff for Gyro Step, who we've had Ty on the show several times. So we wanted to kind of branch out and hear other voices out of Milwaukee. Rohan, how did I do your name, and how we doing today?
Doing well, and you nailed the name pronunciation, so thank you for that.
Okay, well, I feel better.
Yes,
I feel
it
good.
is. It's always like I've heard some wild ones in the past, but no, you nailed it. Appreciate that. But I'm doing well. Happy to be here. Happy to talk about like a good basketball series, because that's what we're here to talk about. Miami Heat versus the Milwaukee Bucks with the Heat up 2-1, and I know you had Ty on after.
Game 2.
Earlier
game
in the
1
series.
after game 1, yeah.
Yeah, it was after game 1 before game 2. And it's just been such a whirlwind, as we're going to get into. But just, man, what a series so far.
What a series. Chat saying, who's this other Rohan? They're familiar. If I had a nickel for every Rohan that has been on the show, I'd have 2 nickels. Shout out to Rohan Katti of Sports Illustrated. Friend of the show, a friend of mine. So hope we get Ro back on the show before the playoffs ends. I know he's a busy man. So let's just jump right into it. We have game 4 coming up, but you know what else we have? Miami Gaming Parties, because you deserve a customized gaming experience. Miami Gaming Parties delivers private custom video game tournaments for gamers and their lucky guests. This is truly custom. You can pick the game and the package, premium or black tie VIP for 8 to 16 people, and they bring it all, everything from PS5s to trophies for the winners. Play at home or at a venue of your choosing with free on-site consultation, perfect for birthday parties, bachelor parties, anniversaries, corporate events, or anything you want to celebrate. Check out MiamiGamingParties.com for more information. On Twitter, @GamingParties. On Instagram, @Miami_Gaming_Parties. Or search Miami Gaming Parties on Facebook. Guys, check them out. They support what we do here, and they keep the lights on, and they're, pretty much a godsend in the playoffs. So give them a look. If it's something that you're interested in, Colin and the crew over there, they do a great job, and honestly, really, really nice, great people. So, on to basketball. Rohan, I think the biggest adjustment, for Miami, kind of even going into the series, was playing Bam at drop, which is kind of funny because I think whenever the Bucks come into play, there's always like, drop stinks or whatever, which is kind of weird because the Bucks always have the best defense in the league. So clearly it's good for something, but I think in the playoffs it can be a little bit exploitable. I think people are kind of obsessed with switching nowadays, but Miami, who is the switch team, they changed their scheme. First for Giannis, they were dropping Bam and having him guard him one-on-one, and now against Holiday, even when Jimmy Butler is on Holiday, and typically Miami would love Bam on guards. That's like really the objective of their defense is to get Bam as their point of attack defender and kind of prevent drives to the rim. Miami's kind of pivoted. They've gone drop. Jimmy's Butler's going over picks. They're respecting Jrue Holiday shooting, which he's been, very dangerous this series. And I think they've kind of identified him as a problem to stop. How have you viewed how they've defended him? Because I think he's, and we've agreed kind of on our pod that he's the head of the snake with Giannis out.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the defense now has to tilt towards Jrue Holiday, so it didn't necessarily surprise me to see Miami make that adjustment to sort of like counteract what Jrue Holiday had been doing, because with Giannis out and Chris Middleton, who used to be the head of the snake, with next in the pecking order with Giannis out, he hasn't been that guy this season, dealing with a lot of injuries, still hasn't found his footing coming back. So it's honestly like it's weird to see, but it's not surprising to see Miami like adjusting to Jrue Holiday. But you hit the nail on the head. That drop defense against Jrue Holiday really sort of switched things up a little bit, because you don't have any sort of like mismatches that could be created via switching. You can leave like a all-world defender in Bam on Jrue. You can not let him bully guys, because that's what Jrue likes to do when he gets his switches. Is he likes to go and bully guys. And Jrue Holiday, strong as an ox, one of the best, strong guy. He's not going to bully Bam. That's not really going to happen. So once he gets down low, he can't really do that to Bam. So it's been a it really worked well for Miami, and I think it's just showing the drop defense is still, it's, even though it might not be in vogue, it's still good. And as someone who's covered the Bucks for a while now, I'm always a proponent of the drop defense. But in this situation, it's really worked against Milwaukee.
It's so interesting because I think about like how Giannis would affect this, right? So like right now they have Bam on, mostly on Portis, which I thought was interesting as they kind of kept Kevin Love on Brook Lopez, and I'm like, that's weird because like they like to screen with Lopez a lot, so like you'd kind of want Bam in those actions. It doesn't matter if Love's on Portis or Brook. They're just, Milwaukee is spamming him in pick and roll, and they're really going at him. And I think probably Spo recognized that, and they probably felt more comfortable helping off of Bobby than they do off of Lopez. I do think Lopez is I thought in game 2 he killed them off cuts more than anything. It was like kind of getting Lopez moving into his spots rather than posting him up, because I think you saw in game 3, when they did try to post him up a couple times, the fronts were there. Bam's coming off of Portis to come help on those fronts and kind of be behind in case he gets the catch. So kind of interesting. Obviously, with Giannis there, it complicates things, right? You kind of have to really account for him. And now there's a ton of a new added variant of like, okay, when you're screening, the roller is the most dangerous person. I think in these cases, it's not, right? It's Jrue. So I think that's the other element of it. But despite that, I think Miami's done, a terrific job considering, I don't know if you knew this, Rohan, their defense fell off a cliff after the All-Star break. It's been like bad, abysmal.
Yeah, it's been like that was something I was tracking as we were doing a little bit of preparation for the series before it started. It's just like, oh, is this defense gonna are they gonna do the cliche flip the switch, because it was not great post All-Star break.
It's trending wrong.
The switch has been flipped to say the least. But no, that defense, like you mentioned, first of all, I think inserting Kevin Love into the starting lineup was I think it was a good call, because we saw early in game 2, we saw that the Bucks were just abusing their size.
Yeah.
They were just like, okay, whoever Max Strus is guarding, like Duncan Robinson is guarding, like if anyone's matched up on a big and you're not a big, you are getting put in the basket. Like, we are going to play the classic game of which guy is taller, and we have the taller guy. So that allowed Milwaukee to sort of build an early lead, and then their just shooting took off from there. But not allowing those obvious size mismatches, was it was a necessary move. But like you mentioned, bringing Kevin Love in, it kind of let Milwaukee sort of attack him or try to attack him by bringing him in all the screening actions. But Miami's defense has really, really held up. And one thing I've noticed is it's hard. It's difficult for me to say this, because it's like, obviously Giannis fixes a lot, and he hasn't been playing. But one thing is on the defensive end for Milwaukee, and on the offensive end, when you're talking about Miami's defense, they can't bend to Giannis. If you're Miami's defense, you have to load up against Giannis on the offensive end. You don't have to load up against anyone else really on the Milwaukee Bucks, and that's really been showing. If you're Miami, is like, you can throw your occasional doubles, you can flash help towards guys like Jrue Holiday, towards Chris Middleton, and you don't have to worry about it, because the other guys you're not worried about them killing you, and they haven't been killing you. So Miami's defense has really stood the test, and it's easy to say Giannis fixes a lot of this, because it's like, yeah, he's probably the best player in the world, but you don't have Giannis. So what are you supposed to do about it? And Miami is really, really taking advantage of it.
I want to give a shout out to Spo, because a lot of fans, Rohan, here in Miami have been they've been really down on Spo this year. They've said this is a bad Spo year. And I think there's some validity to wasn't his best, run at the year, but I think kind of you see in the playoffs the adjustments, right? It's like we were a switch team all year. That's out the window. They had a game plan for Giannis. I mean, and it was different than what they've normally done. They always kind of switched and loaded up, and they still, did the whole build the wall thing and all that stuff. But, as I've said before, they kind of kept Bam in single coverage, all that stuff. Giannis goes out. They try a defense in game 2, and it did not work. And then they totally revamped it again. And we've seen Miami throw 3 different coverages at Milwaukee. And credit to Bud, by the way, for, shredding whatever they did apart in Game 2. And we're going to talk about some of kind of the micro adjustments in Game 3. But I just wanted to give that shout to Spo because I think fans have been kind of hard on him. And I just think that and to Bam as well, like playing a different coverage than you've played the last 3 years is not easy to do. And to do it in reality, Game 3 was so high leverage for Miami, more so to Miami than Milwaukee, because Milwaukee kind of wins this game, whatever, you're tied 2-2 going home, you're still going to have home court. For Miami, it's like, if you don't win this game, like, you're probably not winning the series, So I thought it was kind of huge for both of them. I just want to give them a small shout because I think fans have been kind of tough on them.
It's well-deserved. I mean, that's one thing we thought of at the Gyro Step coming in. It's like, if there's one coach you don't really want to face in the playoffs, it's Erik Spoelstra. Because even though, like you mentioned, Heat fans have been kind of down on him, had a little bit of a down regular season. I'll take you at your word on that. He always rises to the occasion. He makes sure he rises to the occasion, and that's why he's like, he's on the upper echelon of NBA coaches in NBA history. It's like he is that dude, and he has been that dude in the postseason. And he's just one of the smartest basketball minds out there. So he's really showing what he can do, because even though Giannis is hurt and like there's a plethora of injuries on both sides now, it's just like, yeah, I can put my guys in a really good position to win no matter what our roster construction looks like. And that's what Erik Spoelstra does.
Let's talk a little bit about Kevin Love and kind of how he's going to survive in this series, because if we're looking ahead to Game 4 and if I'm Milwaukee, you're kind of thinking, okay, like what are the soft spots of Miami that we can attack? And I think they for sure identified Love, and they put him in pick and roll a ton. And I thought Miami, did a good job. They showed him really hard up top. If Jrue would kind of call Kevin screener, he comes up. Kevin Love gave a really, really good hard show. Bam is the low man. Lopez slips. Bam kind of rotates over. Okay, I'm on Lopez. That pass comes in. They don't care about Portis. He's in the weak side anyway. That's a difficult pass for Brook to make, and you give yourself a chance, and it worked. I like the adjustment Bud made mid game. They're like, okay, well, let's not let Bam be the low man. Let's make that low man Max Strus or Gabe Vincent or whoever a small guy is that's not going to bother Lopez on a roll. And I thought they got some good stuff out of that. Like Kevin and Bam weren't sure, like, are we switching? Are we showing? Middleton got an open 3 off of that. I think that's one of the areas where they can which is kind of ironic, by putting Bam in action, it helps your offense. But I think like Middleton and Holiday, because Bam, I don't think he's going to be very comfortable going over screens, and neither, that's going to be tough. And if those guys can kind of hit those pull-ups, I think that kind of opens that dimension for them. And then you have Lopez to offensive rebound when your 2 bigs are on the perimeter.
Yeah, I'm really glad you highlighted that, because that was something that I had noticed a little bit, is like, okay, this isn't working. What can we do to mitigate this? And one thing about Brook Lopez that I thought of when you were talking about this is like, you're not really worried about Bobby Portis on the weak side, because it's like, it's a tough pass to make. Brook Lopez, is not the best passer in the world. I don't
want to call him Embiid-esque, but he's
it's not pretty.
He's no CP3.
That's an understatement of the century right there. And Brook Lopez especially, like he had a rough Game 3 by his standards. But if you're putting Brook Lopez in a position where he has to make a decision about making a pass, because it's like, if like Brook Lopez sees Bobby Portis is open on the weak side, like other players can swarm to that pass, and they're not really worried about Brook Lopez making like jump passes behind him or anything, because he only has the one option available to him, because he's either going to make one pass that's wide open, or that at the passing lane that can be jumped fairly easily if you look for it ahead of time, or he can just try to go and take Bam at the rim. Like, he's not the rare occasions where he does pass out of it is it's like, oh wow, Brook actually passed the ball. But it's like, in Miami is also like reading these ahead of time, which makes it even more difficult on Brook. Like, you're putting so much pressure on Brook if you're consistently having him involved in these actions with Bam Adebayo as the low man. So I thought it was a great job by Bud to try and what kind of variation can we get from this? But I'm sure if they I'm sure if Bud wants to go to that in Game 4, I could see Miami doing something like, oh, they see you're bringing Bam into a screen, try to create that mismatch. Could you try to like scram out of it?
I think
if
you
you're
switch
Miami?
that. If it's Love and Bam, I think you switch it. The problem is like this is what Atlanta did in the playing game. They made Lowry the low man, and I know that Lopez isn't the roller that Collins and Okongwu and Capella are, but they were just killing him off these rolls, and Lowry kind of rotates to help, and he just genuinely stands no chance. So I figure, if that's, they'll switch that, and then they'll live with Kevin on Middleton. They might send the corner man to come help, or kind of live with the result of that. But I think that's a battleground that we have to explore. Or that the Bucks are going to explore, because it was really the one area of Miami's defense that I'm like, they kind of got away with that a little bit. They were not challenged. The Bucks went to it a couple times, and then they stopped. They were more Holiday centric, which Miami like really had an answer for. So I think that's one thing we got to look out for in Game 4. I think going at Love a little bit more efficiently is kind of okay. Well, how can we do that? And then the other thing, Rohan, is the Bucks are the best transition offense in the postseason. Via the cleaning the glass, 159 offensive rating in transition. That's first. And I thought in Game 2, so many of their threes came off of kind of those it was Ingles kind of in semi-transition. It was Jrue Holiday in transition. It was guys with trailer threes. Pat Connaughton flying all over the place, right? And if you're the Heat, you made even in that first quarter, I thought so much of Milwaukee's best offense came from that. It's like kind of Jrue in semi-transition. It's Middleton getting a pull-up. It's Miami getting a weird cross matchups. It's like, oh, fuck, Max Strus is on Brook Lopez, goddammit, and stuff like that. And I thought Miami kind of started hitting shots, and it kind of slowed kind of that part of it down. But I think Milwaukee has to make it a point to try to force some turnovers, live ball stuff, get out and move, and try to create offense that way, because for sure Miami has so many like bad cross matchups against the Bucks. That's another way. If I'm Milwaukee, I try to go at Miami.
For sure, I completely agree with that. The issue is that Milwaukee on defense, like in order to create those opportunities, you need to be more aggressive on the defensive end. You need to gamble. Yeah, you have to be conservative, because they don't have their all-world wrecking help defender to clean up all their messes when they're being aggressive on defense. Like the Bucks have been so conservative on the defensive end, because they have to play whatever actions they are 1-on-1, 2-on-2. They have to do that, because they can't allow any mistakes, because you're used to having, you have Lopez at the rim and you have Giannis to clean up everything, and you have Jrue Holiday. If he gets behind a play, you have him trailing as well. Giannis isn't there. Giannis is not there to help clean up your messes. And what makes this Milwaukee defense so intimidating is that you have Jrue at the point of attack, you have Brook at the rim, and you have Giannis to clean up your messes, like I mentioned earlier. One of those aspects is gone, and you need all three of them to work in tandem for them to actually to make that system actually work. If you don't have that cleaning, Jrue can't be as aggressive. He can't try and jump screens. He can't try and be aggressive going over screens, because if he gets behind a little too much, you have just a wide open mid-range floater. You have a wide open three. We saw that a ton with guys like Duncan Robinson early in the first quarter. If you just run a basic empty corner with Brook and Duncan and Bam, so you have Brook in a deep drop, it's just a wide open three for Duncan Robinson or whoever whatever shooter it is, because you don't have any help defense. And again, I don't want to be that guy who's just saying, oh yeah, if Giannis comes in here, he fixes things. Giannis makes this team run, and one of the things he does is allow them to be aggressive on defense, which allows you to create those turnovers and play in transition. It's not just that Giannis is a great transition player. That's what makes the Bucks transition offense incredible. It's because he allows them to play aggressive on the defensive end, creating those opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, and so I know that Milwaukee's defense has been good with Giannis off, right? I think that their defensive rating is about the same when he's on or when he's off. But I think kind of what you're talking about is that the ability to be more aggressive in a high leverage situation. I think as a helper, I think you've seen the Heat have very successfully manipulated the help, where it's Jay Crowder, who has been playing pretty bad. It's small guys. It's Pat Connaughton. It's like Bobby Portis, who like Jimmy Butler like doesn't give a shit about if he like comes to help. And I think that's kind of, I mean, Jimmy Butler shooting 71% against Brook Lopez in this series. So you couple that with there is no help that scares him. Like, they're getting to the rim and he's attacking, because he's been bad in mid-range, actually. He's been lower than his season average from mid-range shots, although he's hit like every three he's taken, which is like peak Jimmy Butler in the playoffs. Like, haha, this makes no sense. Good luck with this. But the fact that like he's killing like he's shredding Lopez, he's getting whatever he wants, and it's not even off the dribble a lot of times. It's like they'll run like off-ball shit, and they'll get him like at the nail, and he'll catch the ball at the nail, and he's just one-on-one with Lopez, and he just goes at him. He's either getting free throws, he's getting to the basket, and he's challenging him. Giannis not being there kind of takes that element away, which is, I'm curious, like if he does play in game 3 or 4, like how does that look if he's limited or whatever. But credit to Miami, Milwaukee's Brook Lopez is a runner-up defensive player of the year, and they have not been scared of him at all, except for Bam. That's a different conversation. But Jimmy and Co have gone at him, and man, bro, like I don't. The fact that they're shooting 71 or Jimmy's shooting 71% against Lopez is like kind of wild to me.
It's crazy. Like it's a lot of guys get intimidated when they're trying to finish over Lopez at the rim. But Jimmy Butler has no fear of that at all, and that's one thing. Yeah, it's just been ridiculous. He's finishing everything over Brook, and he's like sort of throwing off his timing. His pump fakes are always patentedly really, really good. He's like, Brook Lopez is a guy who doesn't bite a lot, but he's biting on Jimmy, and he's finding the right angles and just finishing so like effortlessly over Brook Lopez, a guy like you mentioned, second in Defensive Player of the Year voting, and just he's making him look like he's not there at the rim, which is just. It's a testament to Jimmy Butler. It's not like trying to bring down Brook Lopez. It's trying to say like, hey, Jimmy Butler is like really, really fucking good at this. Like,
Jimmy's a gamer, bro.
He's incredible. He's playing ridiculous, and it's like you bring up guys like Bossman 99 and Pat. I love calling him Bossman.
I do too. So funny.
Like you bring in Bossman, and he's just like not bothered by him. And Jimmy is also not afraid of Jrue Holiday, and he's probably the only guy in the league who fears that. Like Jrue doesn't bother Jimmy at all. And again,
yeah,
I'm trying not to do this. One guy who does bother Jimmy a bit as a primary defender is Giannis.
Size has always been the thing, and it's like Holiday's a really good and strong defender, but Jimmy's stronger and he's bigger. So, and I think Jimmy's like shooting like 46% against when Holiday's a defender, which is like, it's like good, not great. Obviously Holiday is like an all-world defender. Jimmy's 16 for 20 at the rim. He's 12 for 20 from 4 to 14 feet. He's 1 for 9 from 14 feet to the three-point line. So like the long jumpers have been bad, which, he's taken the fewest kind of amount of those, and everything else he's been really, really efficient on. He's shooting like 60 freaking percent like every game this series. It's pretty crazy. 55, 66, and 63 in his 3 games. So he's been absolutely remarkable. He plays, Ro, he plays with like a violence that it's, and I tweeted this earlier. I said, Jimmy isn't Wade that dominated games with speed, maneuverability, and incredible shot making. He scores points in a way that feels defiant and violent. It's laborious and looks painful, but it's calculated. He's equal parts genius and psychopath, one of one. And he's like that kind of enigmatic player who you watch him kind of score, and I'm tired watching him play. Like, I feel exhausted because like the way he plays looks totally unsustainable, but he kind of steps up and he does that, and he's going at like these great defenders. And my snapshot, and I've talked about this on the pod a lot, my snapshot moment from the bubble, more so than Jimmy kind of keeling over, after he scored that last bucket on LeBron. It's when he was so unafraid of Giannis that he went at Giannis and scored over him, and he yelled to this empty arena in Orlando, "He can't fucking guard me." And I was like, that's the coolest motherfucker I've ever seen in my life. He's awesome and insane, because I would not want to make Giannis mad. Like, they're talking about poking the LeBron bear. That's over, dude. The Giannis bear?
It's tough. Like, I'm always going to respect Jimmy. I'm a Marquette guy, too. So
let's go.
It's like, It's always going to be there for me. But like, yeah, he's a psychopath, but in the best way possible. It's like if you're a fan of his, it's the best. It's the absolute best. But yeah, the Bucks, they're struggling with what to do. We were talking on our pod about, hey, what do you really do with Jimmy Butler if he's trying to like hit all these shots, like, because the Bucks have been consistently going under on Jimmy Butler screens and allowing him to take these pull-up threes. But classic Jimmy Butler, like you mentioned earlier, classic playoff Jimmy Butler, he's just hitting every three he takes. Like anything from three, anything at the rim is just cash. Anything in between is just not. It's just classic playoff Jimmy Butler. And we're talking like, do you adjust? Do you like try and get Jimmy going downhill, trying to like fight over those screens? And I'm just sitting here like, what are we talking about? What is like? How are we at a point where we're talking about? Oh, do we have to respect Jimmy enough where we have to go over screens on him? And
it's like how Miami's treating Jrue. Like, but Miami decided, yeah, we're gonna. They might have to defend.
I think they do. I honestly think they do, because you can't base your defense off prior things. You have to take what's going on right now in front of you and adjust in real time to that. It's like whatever Jimmy Butler shot in the regular season or in playoffs in the past or against the Bucks in the past, that doesn't matter. That shouldn't dictate what your defense does. What he's doing currently against you is what should dictate what your defense is going to do with him. So you have to be more aggressive on Jimmy Butler on defense, because he's just killing you.
Do you think they should play, the wing or Jrue, go over screens, play Lopez a little bit higher, and then send weak side help?
I think you have to do that, because if you're going to go over screens like that, you have to bring Lopez higher. Like, you have to bring him close to the level of the screen for that to happen.
He's had series where they've asked him to do that. This is like Bud has made the adjustment that I know he probably begrudgingly did, where they've brought Lopez as high as they need to. I think against the Nets in particular. So yeah, keep going.
Yeah, no, like, that astute observation, because they did that against the Nets. They did that a bit against the Suns as well in that title run.
Yes.
You have to bring Lopez higher.
They can't defend him like Kevin Durant, Rohan. That's just funny.
But they have to, though.
I know, it's funny. It's fucking Jimmy, dude.
It's Jimmy Durant at this point. Like, they have to. What other choice do you have? Otherwise, you're going home. You have to bring Lopez higher. You have to be more aggressive with him, because otherwise your other option is like putting Bobby Portis in more over Lopez, and Jimmy has just been shredding Bobby.
And that's the other thing I wanted to get to. So Miami has decided that they're sick of Bobby Portis, and they have fucking made his life hell. I thought in game 2, I thought they lost that game when Lopez sat. I think Lopez and Holiday sat, and it was like Middleton, Portis, Connaughton, and like a bench, and some like maybe Grayson Allen, like some bench guys or whatever, Jay Crowder. And Milwaukee extended the lead, and I'm like, oh, this is done, because they'd like the Portis at 5 is. I even like Middleton at 5. I know they did some of that yesterday. I like Bobby. I like Middleton at 5 more than Bobby. They saw food in game 3 when Bobby Portis was on the floor, and they looked for him everywhere. They tried to put him in Spain. They tried to put him in any kind of action that they could. If Milwaukee tried to hide him, which is, I was kind of laughing at the idea, like, why did Eric Spoelstra run Spain for Gabe Vincent 5 times? Which is just like a fucking I was like, didn't run it for Kyle Lowry once. Didn't run it for Jimmy Butler once. 5 times for Gabe. And I love Gabe. I'm a Gabe lifer. But I was like, I think it's they're trying to hide Bobby, and they bring him in. Like, no, you're in. You're here. You're going to be in this action, and that floater is going to be there. That little pull up. They used Jimmy. The play that Jimmy got hurt in, he was a low man. He was a low screener on the Spain, and that's where he got hurt. Kind of, he slipped that screen and had that kind of body contact and fell. But that's the area, if I'm Miami, that I'm like, they cannot. If I'm the Heat, one of the biggest places you miss Giannis is, well, now we got to play a lot of Portis at the 5. Now there's a lot of like no Portis and no Lopez and no Giannis on the floor, and it's just Bobby and guys, and Crowder's been a mess. And if I'm Miami, I'm like, you can't play that. And I think, Rohan, back to when LeBron was here, They played the Indiana Pacers, and the big thing was the Heat made sure that the Pacers could not survive with DJ Augustine on the floor, which made George Hill have to play like 5 minutes a game, because every time Augustine came in, it was like piranha. It's like, okay, guys, go at him. Like LeBron switch onto him. Like, you make it so that guy is not playable. And I think that obviously to a lesser extent, LeBron and Dwayne and Bosh aren't here, right? But you have to try to make it so that they regret playing Bobby, also by ignoring him on offense, which shrinks the floor, and you kind of take away those passes to get him the ball, and then also to kind of go at him on defense. And I think that's worked for Miami a ton, and I don't know the answer for Milwaukee. Like, if you're the Bucks, like, you got to play him. So
yeah, it's tough, especially because he's been like such an offensive spark plug. Bobby Portis says also on DJ Augustine, the Bucks also learned that lesson the hard way. About DJ Augustine.
Everybody learns the DJ Augustine lesson eventually.
he always manages to get you. Yeah, they just have no other option. Their only other big options are like, do you want to play Myers Leonard?
Oh, please, dude. I've seen that movie. We call him redacted around here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we call him redacted.
That's fair. That's fair.
We redacted. When redacted gets minutes, that's another. I mean, he was.
Yeah, we might have to steal that.
But yeah, no, keep going.
But it's been like there's just no other big options. Like, again, like with Giannis out, you can't do Giannis at the 5 lineups, and they ran, like you mentioned, those Chris at the 5 lineups. Like, it was kind of like a hybrid Chris or Pat at the 5, depending on the possession. And it was like, oh, we haven't seen this before, but I guess we kind of have to do it.
Blood's in the bag, baby.
To his credit, again, that lineup was actually working fairly well, because Chris, even though he refuses to play like it, is like 6'8" and like has some size.
He's like one of their biggest guys now. Like, it's like him, Bobby, and I mean, I guess Crowder, but he's like their best big
boss man.
Boss man 9'9".
Has
he made a 3 this series? He's gonna make like 7. I'm talking too much shit.
No, I think it'll vary series to series. So if the Bucks actually do end up winning the series, which I have no idea at this point, he's going to shoot 200% from 3 in the next round.
The Knicks are so
and that's
fucked.
just how he averages out to like 37%.
It's incredible. Well, that happened in the bubble because he lit the Bucks up. Could not hit a shot against the Celtics for his fucking.
Yeah, and he did that the next year. He was terrible against the. He
was good against the Lakers, wasn't he? And then he was bad in every other series or something.
Yeah, and even last year he was like really, really good against the Pelicans, and then he was bad against the Pelicans and then really good against the Mavs. Even though he was like the only good Sun against the Dallas Mavericks.
I forgot about that series.
Yeah, it's just one day in the middle of the offseason, I just watched Dallas Suns Game 7 just to like feel something about basketball. But we're getting a little off topic here. But
feel someone for who? Like, funny? Because that was funny.
Yeah. It was funny, yeah.
It was one of the funniest Game 7s I've ever watched. It was like...
I wanted to be entertained, so I just threw that.
I couldn't believe it. It was bad, dude. I was like, am I watching this?
It's so good. It's so good. But yeah, like, the Bucks' lack of size is really gonna, like, especially if you can't play Portis. Like, the Bucks have been in this position before. Like, we talked about earlier, that Brooklyn series 2 years ago. Bobby Portis was excised from the lineup. There was only one rotation player available. There was only like one guy off the bench who played the last 2 games, and that's Pat Connaughton. Because Bobby Portis was just he wasn't viable. And honestly, the more the comparisons you bring up, the more vibes I'm getting like that these 2 series are kind of parallel, because they honestly are. You have that one guy who's just killing you in Jimmy Butler and Kevin Durant. And then you just have like these aggressive defensive schemes. You have all of these like games within the games that are going on, and it's just like, okay, which one of us is gonna like outmuscle the other? Because it's just gonna turn into like a mosh pit at the end, and that's what this series is probably gonna turn into. It's just like who wants it more at the deepest part of the trenches? Because that's the way these 2 teams like to play. Like, they both like to play very physical styles, very smart styles. And at the end of the day, it's just going to be a dogfight.
It's going to be like, who has the weakest links? Because, like I said, we talked about Miami's in love. We talked about Portis, right? And obviously, like, Tyler's not playing anymore, who is like obviously like a target on defense. Duncan's the other guy, and I want to talk about him now. We're real quick on kind of Chris at the 5. I think it's pretty viable on non-Bam minutes because, like, are you really scared of, like, Love? And I think the other thing with Love is that, you know, he's pulling that, you know, whether it's Lopez or Portis out of the paint. I mean, not that they care about Lopez helping, but really pulling Lopez out of the paint. So, or Lopez stays in the paint and he's wide open. If you kind of time it so that, you know, okay, Lopez is on the floor, you're just playing Chris at the 5. Like, are you really scared of, like, Kevin Love, like, killing you? Like, not really, you know, like, so I think that might be, like, a viable option for when, you know, Lopez has to sit, but I think it's going to be a high series minute for Lopez. But going to Duncan, happy birthday, Mr. Duncan Robinson. He's back, baby. He's back. We've missed him. He, you know, Rohan, we've been hammering on this show. If you're going to play Duncan Robinson, can you please play him with Bam? Because they like playing with everybody that's not Bam. And Bam's his buddy. Bam's his little two-man game buddy. And I think the dribble handoff is the way to go against Milwaukee because you isolate actions, because you take help. Even when Giannis is on the floor, you know, if you run Lopez then you have to put Giannis on Bam to change that, right? Because he can't come help. You know, they're just running Lopez and then whoever Duncan's defender is, whether it's Connaughton, Grayson Allen, Middleton. I know they tried a little bit of everybody. They tried Jrue on him at some point too, which I think is funny that they're having Jrue chase this little white guy around. You're laughing, but at one point I was like, "Is this happening?" Like, Jimmy Butler's on, like they're just Jimmy's on the floor. You know that, right? They're like, stop that man at all costs. It's funny.
It's so funny. But yeah, you're right. Like Duncan Robinson being involved is just like, especially with Bam, you're right, because it makes the most sense. You're leveraging both of their abilities to complement each other so well, because they do complement each other so well. And you're just attacking Milwaukee. And like we were talking about earlier, and in terms of like isolating actions, with Milwaukee even playing more conservative than they usually do, you are just getting whatever you want with that action. Like, that's why it allows, sure, Duncan has to make those shots, which to his credit, he did. He was making every shot he really wanted. That pull-up 3 in transition, I was like, yeah, this game's over. I think it was like the second quarter, but I was like, yeah, this is over. Like, there's no shot that if Duncan Robinson is hitting like this, it's just it's not your night.
So my thing with that is, so like, I think obviously like they're gonna go to that, right? Like Miami is like, okay, well, if he's gonna hit shots, then this is like clearly like a very viable option for us. And if you're Milwaukee, you have two solutions. You can play Lopez higher, which I don't think they want, because I think if you're Miami, you want that, because then you can get Bam on slips, which Duncan has gotten very good at that slip pass. So if you play Lopez a little too high and that like to bother Duncan's shot, you know, you're getting Bam on a slip, and really, again, no Giannis, there's no backline help. Or you switch it, which I think is a more viable option. I do think, because Bam's not a post-up big. He's not. He's bad at it. So, like, he's going to get the switch, and then he's going to face up, and then you could just send help. If I'm Milwaukee, at some point I have to consider that. I know coaches kind of wait to see how – that's a huge adjustment. So, I wonder what it takes for them to do it. I don't know if you have – I don't know what you think they're going to do the next game. They probably don't do anything, and they let him play out another game to see if they have to react to Duncan. Like, is Duncan shooting actually back? But those were the two options that I thought of. Was like, I don't know what else they could do.
I mean, we saw a bit of Duncan shooting in game 2 as well. So and you're at a situation, you're at a point, if you're Milwaukee, where you have to do everything, because you cannot go down 3-1. Like, this is a must-win game if you're the Milwaukee Bucks. So you have to treat it like it's win or go home, because even though there's a lot of other factors and it's not over, it's essentially over if you lose this game. So I think they're going to go and be as aggressive as possible. Like, at minimum, I think they're going to bring Lopez at the level of screens. And you have to consider, like, you have to be ready to switch those actions. Like, if anything, it'll start to take time off the shot clock, so you don't allow Miami to take possession after possession, because once you switch it, you have to sort of reset, assess the mismatches that you have, and sort of work from there, and that takes time. And if you get to that late in the shot clock or middle of the shot clock, by the time you get set up, you have to take the first shot that you can get. So that's maybe one thing that Milwaukee has to consider.
You could put Portis on Bam too, I think, and then you could switch that more comfortably and still have Lopez as a helper.
That's the next thing I was going to bring up. You hit that. Is that the Bucks have been most comfortable in switch everything lineups with Bobby at the 5 rather than Brook, because even though Brook is the more traditional stalwart defender, Bobby is the more mobile one.
Yeah.
And putting Bobby in a drop is just not leveraging his abilities to the best. Because he's just you have to recognize he's the quicker big. What can you do to leverage that to make him better on defense? And if you want to do a switch everything scheme, you have to have Bobby Portis in there instead of Brook Lopez.
They switched him onto Jimmy a couple times, and that didn't work out for them. I do think they can get away with it on Duncan, although Duncan took Jrue off the dribble the other day in the most what the fuck moment of my life. Did you see
he
that?
He just went right to the rim.
Yeah. Dog, it wasn't just that. It was Duncan's song. He's like, oh, I got Jrue. He pulled the ball out. Like it's CP3 getting Zubac on a switch. He pulled the ball. He's like, oh, like this? And then didn't even really beat him. He just kind of muscled him, which was the other crazy part, and finished. And I was like, what parallel universe did we come on?
I was yeah, that's actually it's solid defense. Jrue did his best, but Duncan's nah, I'm finishing over you.
Dog, it was like Kawhi. He was Kawhi. That's like a Kawhi finish, dude. Classic, I don't beat my man, I don't care. Boardman gets paid.
Ridiculous.
Dude, it was
happy birthday, Duncan Robinson. Let's hope it was a birthday thing if you're Milwaukee.
That shit was funny. Sorry for the aside. I just wanted to bring that up because it was truly is this happening?
It was wild.
Yes.
But I think it was entirely emblematic of his entire. Actually, no. I think that's a little disrespectful to say that because he did have a very, very good performance.
No, I think it's fair to say that he's sucked all year, man. He's been man. Let me tell you, we've been begging for him to look playable. This is crazy.
He looks like a playoff hero right now. Maybe that's the wrong word.
Listen, he earns his keep. You know what I mean? He has that big contract. Real talk though, I'm just happy that he's had a lot of heat on him, and I think he's gotten kind of unfair vile from the fans because he is really he and Kyle are the big bloated contracts that aren't producing. I think Kyle's been fine. I'm Kyle Lowry life, right? That's my guy, but. I know Duncan for sure has not even been in the rotation, and he's just this large cap rot right in the middle of on your bench, right? It's preventing you from, doing things, and it's gonna probably cost him a draft pick, with the second apron. We're gonna have a show, by the way, hopefully next week or this week. I don't know. I mean, Brian Goins is really dying to do a cap show for you guys, so be on the lookout for our capologist to explain what the fuck's going on. But with this whole second apron thing. And everything, but yeah, Duncan's just been the ire of everyone's hate, and I'm just glad that he got one. He deserved it. But more, sorry to sidetrack, but on the Bobby switch front,
hey, we always gotta support our podcasters like Duncan Robinson.
Yeah, we gotta former Blue Wire. You know what I mean? Yeah. We gotta stick together. He was promised on our show, and then he left Blue Wire, so that never happened. But you know what? At least he offered.
Yeah, at least that was there. There was the potential of a relationship.
He's the third best NBA podcaster right now. Paul George is number one, right? We could agree.
Oh yeah.
Paul George is killing it, and then Thanasis I think might be number 2. And I gotta be honest with you, we hate Thanasis. He's annoying, and you'd understand if he's not on your team. You're just can you shut the fuck up? This is nepotism, right? But Rio got to recognize Rio. Great podcast.
It's great. He does a lot of great stuff. You can tell he knows what he's doing because he always asks questions that you can get social clips from. And it's yeah, this guy's a pro. He knows what he's doing.
He's like those NFT bros that don't actually record a podcast, but they just record clips as if. Have you seen that phenomenon where those people on TikTok and Instagram, they actually don't host a podcast or they interview porn stars? They're actually just recording that 1 or 2 questions and then posing as a podcast that doesn't exist. It's the so dumbest fucking 2023 shit I've ever seen.
It reminds me of that trend of people trying to take pictures in fake private planes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so
Wasn't
funny.
There an NBA player that did that?
Was there?
Chat, can you? Was it? I think there was an NBA player that was pretending to do that on a private jet.
That's incredible.
Was it Brandon Jennings?
That's true. No,
Bucks and Six legend.
Not my guy, Brandon Jennings.
I don't know, chat. If I find it, I'll send it to you. But I'm pretty sure there was some player, and then NBA Twitter found him, and they're like, "This did not just happen."
Incredible. Also, Bobby Portis has a podcast. It's pretty good too.
Bobby has a podcast?
Yeah.
Is it called Don't Blink?
It's called Keep It a Buck.
He should call it Don't Blink.
It would have been incredible if it was Don't Blink. But speaking of Bobby Portis, in terms of like a switching defense, you have to consider that, especially because if you want, we talked earlier about like the Heat are gonna they've been hunting Bobby, so it feels weird to talk about like maybe Bobby is the answer on defense after we just talked about how the Heat were ripping him apart. But he's such an integral part of this team in terms of like being a versatile offensive piece. Like he can provide a scoring punch when needed. So if you have the ability to leverage his defensive abilities to your advantage and sort of try and mitigate what Miami's trying to do. Listen, I'm not trying to say it's a perfect solution. There's plenty of ways that it can be ripped apart. However, like there are scenarios where you can see Bobby Portis is the guy who's the defensive answer for the Bucks. We saw this at the pinnacle of success for Milwaukee when they won the title in 2021. They were closing games with Bobby Portis at the 5 because Brook Lopez could not hang in those situations. And we're like, there's a few parallels there that you can take because they're getting killed in their current defense. So you have to switch it up. You have to play a switching scheme, a more aggressive scheme. In terms of like whether you want to be switching or not. But Bobby Portis might be that solution. The only issue is he going to get into foul trouble like he got into last game? Because that's something that really, really bothered him and hindered his minutes. And it sort of took him out of the equation, even though he was starting to heat up a bit. He just can't get into foul trouble. He can't make dumb mistakes. And that's something that Bobby is kind of prone to doing on defense, is just making like mental lapse errors.
Kyle took advantage of that, and it was so because Kyle had enough of Bobby. I mean, game 2, Bobby was getting kind of trying to get under dude's skins, and I think Kyle got enough of that and just turned the grift on to 100.
It's like when Bobby got that technical in game 2, like trying to talk shit to Kyle Lowry. Kyle's like, "Oh, you want to play that game? I'll play that game. If you want to play, I'm ready to play.
I'm the master.
Joke's on you. I'm into that shit." And then he went with it, and he totally ripped Bobby Portis apart on that. So it'll be like Bobby Portis is probably obviously Giannis. If Giannis plays, that's going to be the guy I'm looking forward to seeing the most. But how Bobby is integrated into this team and whether they use him and to try to switch things up, that's what I'm honestly like one of the top things I'm looking for going into game 4.
Absolutely. Rohan, I want to ask you, so we'll close stuff out. I think we've had a great kind of perspective on kind of what we saw and what's to come. If you're Milwaukee, and we're assuming that Giannis doesn't play, because we talked about kind of the impact that Giannis has if he does. Let's assume that he's not going to play, at least for game 4. If you're Milwaukee, what are a couple win conditions that you're like, okay, the Bucks are gonna win if, and like stuff that they can control, not like, oh, Miami gets like cold from 3 or something. Yeah. Like, like what could they do that that is within their control that you're like, if they do this, they are likely going to win. Ball security,
100%. That is one thing that really stuck out to me, is that Miami was taking advantage of the Bucks' lack of really ball handling. And the primary instigator of that was Chris Middleton. Yeah. He had such a loose handle in this game, and he's been struggling with that ever since he's come back from injury. And like, because even though like we talked about, he's a big guy, we're talking about Chris at center lineups, like he's had like a really, really good handle. He's been a primary ball handler for Milwaukee.
He closes as their ball handler a lot of times.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it just hasn't been there. And Miami is swarming and like forcing a lot of turnovers, forcing a lot of steals, like getting in passing. It's like they have to keep they can't turn it over as much as they did. That's one thing that really stuck out to me, because that created a lot of opportunities for Miami to get easy points and then get into the bonus, because Milwaukee would have to like foul getting back on defense and stuff like that. They were being put in positions where they can't really succeed. And it's all because they kept turning the damn ball over. Like you have to be more secure with the ball. That is number one, especially a coach like Bud who just preaches fundamentals. You have to you cannot give the other team free possessions. And that's what Milwaukee was doing. Like, credit Miami also. They were doing a great job of taking advantage of that. But that is somewhat in your control. You can be tighter. You can make better decisions with the ball. You cannot be so loose with your handle, because the Bucks were just they were letting Miami's swarming defense get to them. So turnovers is one thing. Also, just like being able to pick your spots and move the ball better. Like, again, that's easier said than done, because Miami and their defense is being so aggressive. Like, there's a few possessions. I think actually you had tweeted out a clip of this where Bam is just roaming off of Bobby Portis so far that he gets Pat is trying to pass to Brook in the corner to post up, and then Bam comes from the weak side, sort of takes the ball, creates like a little scrum, and then eventually gets the steal. And Bobby, by the way, has relocated to the top of the arc, or the right wing, and he's wide open. Like, there are going to be opportunities to find wide open guys, or just not even wide open, but like semi-open guys, because Miami is being a little more aggressive on the defensive end, trying to hound these ball handlers. You have to be able to recognize the gaps, recognize the space, and move into spaces where you can get passes off, because that's one thing that the Bucks have really kind of struggled with, is they've gotten tunnel vision. You have to be able to see the rest of the floor. You have to see the gaps, because there are going to be gaps. There's no such thing as a perfect defense in the NBA. Like, if Miami is going to continue to swarm on defense, you're going to have some openings. You're going to have some gaps. It's on Milwaukee to find those gaps.
Yeah, and I think that obviously Giannis is such a key ingredient to all that, because really you can have a little bit of tunnel vision when he is kind of the guy, kind of involved with the offense. And I know their offense struggles so much. The numbers would say that their defense kind of stays steady whether he's on or off the floor, but it's really the offense that takes a huge dip. And I think kind of you're seeing that unless they have a really good shooting night. We have some love in chat. Nova99 says, showing love to streamers on my stream today. Hope y'all are having a fantastic day. We need some positivity out here. Shout out to you. Shout out to chat. Prayers up to Oladipo, who, was playing so well for Miami.
So sad.
Dude, it's heartbreaking, man. And then, finally, the worst, it's bad no matter what, but the worst part is he finally got back in the rotation, looked great. Tyler goes out, unfortunately as well. And they, Miami's short on ball handlers. Really, they have two guards left that can handle it. It's Gabe and it's Kyle. So, Depot was that third guard. Now they're going to have to play a lot of Highsmith, which we haven't even talked about yet, or today rather. But, Highsmith is going to be kind of a part of this rotation now. How that looks like, I don't know. That's going to obviously kind of limit. I mean, Oladipo is kind of moving the ball, kind of going downhill, kind of kept things going. Highsmith is a stationary player. He's a good defender. He'll help them, can hit a corner three or two, but I imagine Milwaukee is going to very comfortably ignore him. So that's going to be something to look out for. And I clamored for Highsmith minutes, but Oladipo kind of changed my mind off of that. Kyle and Gabe are going to have to play a lot of minutes, but heartbroken to see that.
It's so sad. It's so sad. Like you mentioned, like you had a fantastic game. He was finding his spots. He was killing the Bucks. Like, he was aggressive on defense and just like
quick.
It's just so
bouncy,
so quick. He felt like he was actually getting back to where he was, like, pre-injury.
He was flying.
And it was like he finally looked comfortable being Victor Oladipo again, and then just for that to be ripped away from him it is heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. Like, I wanted to cry when I saw it.
Oh, dude, we were. And everybody in that arena was dead quiet, and like everybody reckoned. And I don't know if you watched the local Bucks broadcast or the ESPN broadcast, but the ESPN broadcast, it kind of had, when he fell, like, they kind of had a camera positioned on him, and Duncan comes over, and you can't see what Oladipo says, and Duncan looks like whatever Oladipo told him. He like deflated. Lowry comes over, and he goes, "What did you say?" Because you read the mouth, and then Oladipo says you can't see Oladipo's mouth, and Kyle just goes, "Fuck," and he's like, looks really upset and walks away. So that, to me, I mean, we saw the result today. Gonna miss time. Hopefully he can come back stronger. Hope that he can still stay down here and rehab with Miami. Although I don't know. I mean, I imagine at this point he opts into his option this summer, and hopefully he can rehab here in Miami with the doctors that have been kind of helping his process. So. Prayers to Oladipo and his family. He's Ethan Skolnick, who's on And Brady Hawk, who was on our post game last night, said that he was in pretty good spirits in the locker room on crutches. So at least, he's having a positive mindset and hope that he can get well. But Rohan, thank you. Go ahead.
Looking at the bench, it was just like you could see, like, I forget who it was, just put their head in the towel, like Jimmy just immediately. It was just so sad.
Udonis and Jimmy
Yeah, just like prayers up, just hoping for the best for him because it's so sad.
Dude, it was absolutely deflating. Not to end on that note, but Rohan, thank you so much for coming on. And I've implored you guys when Ty came on, check out is it you guys call it Euro Step? I call it Gyro Step.
Yeah, Euro Step.
Okay, cool. It's
like the move.
Yeah. It's a play. I just wanted to make sure I was pronouncing it. Yeah. Check out Euro Step because they do good stuff. And like I said, in a series like this, you guys get our perspective, and we've been in the heat trenches all year. Check them out if you want. There's going to be a lot of stuff that we don't know. Obviously, like people that cover the Bucks are going to know the Bucks really well, and if I think it's good to kind of get that perspective. So make sure to check them out on the Blue Wire family. We know that Rohan and Ty's been on a bunch, and I know you guys showed a lot of positivity to Ty in the YouTube comments and on Twitter. So make sure to check out their show. Ron, do you have anything else coming up that you want to plug, or what's going on over there in Rohan land?
No, you can just check out all of our links at gspn.info. That you can find everything there. But yeah, I appreciate the time. I appreciate the plug. It's just been an absolute pleasure talking about this fun series.
Fun series that you guys. So I think the Heat, at least I feels like the Heat take the Bucks very seriously, and they consider them rivals. I don't know how Bucks fans or the Bucks feel about it.
Yep.
Okay. It makes me feel good that it's mutual.
A series. It's the one I did not think it was mutual. I thought it was one way as well, but just like it was like Bucks fans taking the Heat too seriously. But when that came out, what was it that Tyler Hero said that no one can wear Giannis shoes? Like they banned them.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, this is mutual.
Like, and I think it's a respect thing because like I don't think the Heat respect the Sixers at all. I think that's a rivalry, but I think that there's like negative respect. Well, like, just even the way the Sixers team build is just totally against the way Miami has done it. And I think Miami has a respect for Boston because of all the battles they've had really the last 15 years, right? I mean, pretty much the modern NBA, I think Miami's biggest rival has been the Boston Celtics. But I think that this Heat group for sure has like it was really that series that kind of made people take note of this team as well, right? That series in the bubble. And then obviously like Milwaukee comes back and really fucking embarrasses Miami. And I forgot who wrote it. It was a great column about like Milwaukee really exercising kind of maybe their biggest demon because even the Raptor series didn't feel like that one. I'm sure that Raptor fan, like the Raptors, I'm sorry, the Bucks probably felt very embarrassed losing a second round series against a 5 seed. But it's fun. These are two rival teams. A ton of respect for what they have over there, and you guys do great work. So make sure to check them out. Remember, guys, Hangover Time after every single game this postseason. It's Hangover Time's final year, so don't want to miss our special post-game series. Alf, Brass, me, Siobhan, Tiff, the crew, everybody. Make sure to check that out after every game. We have pregame before every game, 30 minutes before. Game day tomorrow. Not a lot of rest, so hopefully Jimmy's ass isn't broken, and hopefully some guys can start getting back in lineups and stuff, but we'll see you there. I think it's 7:30 tip. Is it 7 or 7:30?
Yes.
Yeah.
7:30.
7:30 tip. Be on time. Rohan, I'm telling you, man, we live in a culture of nobody comes on time. I've never been to an event on time in my life. It's just the culture in Miami. This is Miami time. Like, I haven't been to weddings on time. Nobody's on time to anything. A dinner reservation, I don't know how it works in other places. They give you a 30-minute grace period here for a dinner reservation.
30 minutes?
Yes, because nobody's on time, and everybody knows it.
Oh, I thought it like usually it's like 15.
That's 30.
That's crazy. I didn't know
people
that.
don't get it. We don't show up on time to anything. Court hearings, weddings, birthdays, doctor's appointments, DMV appointments, court mandate order, nothing. It's crazy.
Arrest warrants,
like nothing. We're not on time for anything. God forbid there's a flood, and I don't know if you know, but we had massive flooding during the play, and so thankfully, I
have a friend who lives down there. Yeah.
A lot of it seems to be resolved, although we had a fucking gas crisis, and there was no gas in South Florida for like a week, so thankfully that looks to be done. But guys, get to the arena on time, all that good stuff. We love you guys, and we'll see you tomorrow for pre-gaming and then hangover time.